It's okay. Who was that, if I can ask?
Oh, just my brother. He used to live here, but he was causing a lot of problems, coming home really late and making noise, not doing his share of the chores, and so on. We voted him out last month, even me. Even though 6 months ago I was begging everyone to let him stay here, promising he'd be good. Oh well.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm just disappointed with him. Again. I really thought this last time that he'd actually pulled his act together. But he didn't. I wish I could do more for him.
You don't owe him anything.
I feel bad about it. Some of what he's dealing with is his own fault, sure, but not all of it. He's just not built in a way that's suited for this world. I wish there were better ways we could care for people like him. Instead, he just gets thrown out of every place he lives. His relationship with our parents is really bad, too. They aren't willing to try to understand him, so it all ends up going through me.
That must be difficult.
It's all right, really. I handle it like anyone else. We all have our own problems. Anyway, we don't have to talk about my brother. Thank you so much for coming over. I wanted to say it's been really nice working with you.
It's been? Did something happen?
Well, no, but you aren't going to be a proxy forever, are you? I guess I assumed you'd be going back to your job at headquarters at some point.
Maybe, but not for a while.
Oh? So you're going to stay a proxy?
For the time being, at least.
That's cool, but why? I'm curious. I mean, if a high-level job at headquarters was a possibility for me, I'd do whatever it took to get it. No matter what that job was, it couldn't be more stressful than running 3 counseling centers at the same time.
I like being a proxy. I think something about it is good for me right now. As a proxy, I just sit and listen to someone and I don't have to say anything back. I just witness someone's sadness or fear or anger or anything, and I can feel how they feel, sympathize with it. It's a calm feeling, even when the client is worked up. I don't know, maybe it gives me perspective. I'm starting to wonder if I ever really spoke with anyone before. Like, anyone at all in my life? Were we all just talking past each other? Sorry, this is making no sense.
No, I get that. But you could also help even more people by working on Eliza itself, right? Not to mention make way more money. Anyone can be a proxy, but you're important. And kind of maybe like a genius. After you told me you used to work for Skanda, I searched online and found some of your papers. Well, it's not like I can understand them, but they sure look super impressive to someone like me.
Please don't say that.
Oh, come on. Stop self-deprecating all the time. Look, I know this stuff seems like not a big deal to you. I get it, I really do. It's easy to undersell your own skills. I've done that my whole life. So take it from me, you don't have to downplay yourself. Take some credit for the amazing work you did, seriously.
Sorry, Ray. Mind if I reply to this for a second?
Oh, go right ahead. I have stuff to set up in the kitchen anyway.
Sorry for abandoning our conversation like that. I just got something I really thought I should answer. It was kind of about what we were discussing earlier. There's someone at Skanda who really wants me to come back to my old job.
Who? It wasn't Rainer, was it?
Well...
No big deal. Just the CEO of Skanda texting you on your personal phone. Evelyn, you try to tell me you're not a big deal, and then Rainer Sai texts you personally at like 9 in the evening.
Only because he wants something from me.
Still though, that's amazing. What did he say? I mean, you don't have to tell me if you can't. I know how Skanda is about secrets, so I would understand.
He was saying, among other things, he said you could use general artificial intelligence to write poetry.
Is that the kind of stuff he likes to talk about?
I don't know. I haven't had many extended conversations with him. It seemed kind of ridiculous to me.
I don't know if it's totally ridiculous. Poetry, well, most poetry that isn't free verse has certain patterns, right? It has form and meter and other elements depending on the type. A lot of people think poetry can be whatever, but it doesn't quite work that way. So it's not really that far-fetched to think you could use some kind of software to approach it, or understand it, or maybe even create it. It doesn't strike me as antithetical to the spirit of poetry.
I didn't know you had such developed thoughts about this. Did you study poetry?
Not specifically. I used to dabble in a few different kinds of arts and ended up learning a few things here and there. I've always had a wide range of interests. Of course, that meant I never concentrated on one specific area in school, which didn't do a lot of good for my career prospects, obviously. If I were smarter, I probably would have studied something more technical. Have you ever been to a college recruiting fair for engineering and computer science grads? You must have, right? I helped run the Skanda booth for one once, and it blew my mind. They took over the atrium of the building it was in. There were demo stations, free food, Skanda t-shirts and swag. If a candidate seemed interested, they'd talk about flying them out to whatever Skanda office they wanted to visit, just to see it. And all the other tech companies and a bunch of startups I'd never heard of had booths just like it too. I couldn't even imagine being that wanted as a potential employee. Every job I've ever applied for, I've been one among hundreds or thousands. So yeah, my parents were probably right. I should have done computer science.
At least now you know Rainer likes poetry. Maybe you could have a conversation with him about it sometime. Then he'd learn who you are.
I doubt we'd have much to talk about. There's a pretty big difference between someone like him studying poetry and someone like me having opinions about it. Sometimes it's better not to cross that line, you know? He's part of a different world. Say, Evelyn, are you in a relationship? I'm just curious.
Me? No. I wasn't doing so well for the past few years. And before that, I just never had the time. It was just research and science and work, and then I woke up one day and I was in my 30s. Even if I wanted to date, I wouldn't know the first thing about how it's supposed to work. I wouldn't even know how to tell if someone were interested in me.
Yeah, that's perfectly understandable. I'm kind of over relationships myself, like on a conceptual level. Not even in a sad way, like really okay. If someone and I end up getting along, that's great, but I'm honestly okay by myself.
Yeah, that seems nice, actually.
Yeah, I only tried to have normal relationships for so long because I thought it was mandatory, something expected of me. But now I see where people my age end up, how they live, and I feel lucky. I feel like I escaped. I mean, I think it's fine for others if they want that, don't get me wrong. It's just not for me. I could maybe share my life with someone, but it would have to be platonic. I'm not into, the physical aspect of it. Never have been. That's made it tough. I've never found someone who is okay with just like hanging out and that's a relationship. People will say they're okay with it and then it turns out they aren't. It's frustrating.
There are some relationships like that, though.
Sure, and I know some people who have that. I haven't really put that together for myself yet. Sometimes it's hard to escape feeling like it's wrong somehow. I hope we can add features like that to Eliza at some point. Some knowledge and understanding around sexuality and identity and relationships. So people who are different in some way have someone to talk to. Someone to help them work through how they feel and maybe point them to some resources.
You might be overestimating how well Eliza works. It can't really address things like that in any sophisticated way.
Well, maybe not, but just providing a space for people to be listened to can be really valuable, you know? I've seen it with my own eyes. People who get the courage to talk about themselves in a way they never could with another human being. And Eliza is what makes that possible. I know you want to avoid giving credit where it might not be due, but not giving credit to something that deserves it is just as bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. I'm sorry I keep coming down on it.
Evelyn, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I think maybe the reason you're so down on Eliza is because you're down on yourself. I don't know what happened that made you leave what you had behind, but it must have been hard.
Yeah, it was hard. It's like I lost that time.
Are you okay?
People keep asking me that. I really don't know. I'm sorry,
No, don't apologize. Actually, can I suggest something?
What's that?
Have you ever gotten counseling yourself?
What, with Eliza? You think I should?
Yeah, I do. You've been the proxy, but maybe you could try being the client sometime. It would be educational, at least. Isn't that what you were doing? Testing your product in the real world?
Maybe.
Just something to consider. Speaking of therapeutic activities, it's time to do some baking. I've got the dough all set out downstairs. We're going to do 3 batches tonight, 3 different kinds.
3 kinds? You're really outdoing yourself, Ray.
No, this is nothing. Oh, I have a favor to ask, by the way. Next time you talk to Rainer, ask him what his favorite type of cookie is.
What do you think?
It was nice. It was like I could close my eyes and feel myself in another place. But I didn't completely lose awareness of the real world. It was more like a mental state that I was experiencing.
Remarkable technology, isn't it? I've had others who tried it tell me it's akin to a state of higher consciousness. Aware but totally serene, totally peaceful. Here's a thought experiment for you. Say there was a certain medical procedure that could remove your suffering. No side effects, no cost, just an operation that would make you permanently happy. Would you get it? You have these philosopher types arguing you shouldn't do that because sadness and suffering are part of what it means to be human, or that the happiness you'd experience isn't real, so it doesn't count somehow. What a load of bullshit. If there was something effective at taking my pain away and otherwise harmless, I would take it immediately. I refuse to believe that being alive means having to suffer. Oh, forgive me, I forgot to ask. Would you like some scotch as well?
Sure.
The Glencadam. Beautiful, light, luminous taste. Not peaty at all. Lovely stuff. If only psychotherapy worked as well as a single glass of well-made whiskey, huh? If alcohol wasn't poison, I wouldn't have to invent anything now, would I? I do think we did some good work at Skanda, but I always knew there were going to be limits to the Eliza approach. I was a counseling psychologist for a long time, you know. I understand the shortcomings better than anyone. So much of it can feel like a waste of time, talking through everything, dredging up the past over and over again, trying and failing to change our habits and routines. It's all going to look completely ineffectual compared to what comes next. With direct stimulation and induced dreaming, we can take control of our own brains in a way that's never been possible before. There's no reason we couldn't just eliminate this epidemic of despair for everyone in the world. Imagine it. Anger, depression, emptiness, anxiety, jealousy, every kind of unhappiness you can think of. Obsolete. And to think Raynor wanted nothing to do with this.
He didn't think it was possible.
Raynor is one of the ones who thinks negative emotions are important. He told me he thinks pain should be regulated, not eliminated. After all, why would anyone write a poem or make art if they only felt happiness? He also said he was afraid of the way it would look in the media. A company as large as Skanda coming out with a product that changes the brain to make you happy. All the sorry excuses we have for public intellectuals today would throw a fit about how dystopian it looked to them. It's better if a small startup takes the fall, if public opinion turns against this technology. That's the kind of calculus he was doing. Those are the objections he claimed to have, at least. There's another one I suspect he had too, though. If people are self-sufficient, they don't need an ongoing support system. A system provided by an all-knowing paternalistic presence like Skanda.
Wait, you think Raynor wants people to stay miserable so they stay dependent on mental health services from his company?
Yes. Yes, I do. It's quite the accusation, I know. Not something I'd come out and say in public, not yet, anyway. But you see, the people who come to Eliza regularly, it's part of their lives now. The more they integrate with Skanda's mental wellness tools, the more they'd be adrift without them. That's the real dystopia, don't you think? Rendered helpless without the guidance of computer algorithms. Total dependency on the system. Excuse me for 1 second. Evelyn, I really think you, of all people, might understand what I'm trying to do here.
I get it, but you don't think it's dangerous. You're essentially making technology that changes what people think is real.
Evelyn, you're much more concerned than you used to be about this kind of thing. I remember when you would dive headfirst into anything that held a promise, even a fleeting one, to help humanity. What changed your mind to make you so wary, so skeptical now?
Can I ask you something, Soren? What did you tell Damien?
Oh, this again. Don't tell me we had all of this wonderful conversation tonight and now you're trying to blame me for Damien. Who put you up to this? Was it Nora? Raynor?
I just want to know the truth, Soren.
Nobody thought we could do it. You remember that. There was skepticism from day one. I had to defend us constantly from other project managers who didn't like that we existed, who wanted our budget and resources for themselves. Some of those were vicious fights. Amid all that, I had to be a leader, too. Part of that meant giving everyone on the team accurate information. So I was honest in saying there were forces that sought to kill our project. And I was honest when I said we'd never survive if we didn't have something to show for our work. That was the reality. Without a product, we would be nothing. A guy like Raynor has access to anything he wants. If your pitch and demo isn't in the top 1% of what's out there, why would he be interested? That's what we were up against.
So many mornings I would get into work and see Damien there. At first, I thought he was getting up earlier than me, but then I noticed he was still wearing the same shirt from the day before. Then, one morning, I got in and...
Evelyn, please. I wanted everyone on the team to be healthy. I think that's so obvious it doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it now if you think I was deliberately trying to harm him. Did I instruct you to work until you injured yourselves? No, absolutely not. It was a tragedy, and I'm very sorry that it happened. I wish it hadn't. But I wasn't telling Damien to pull all-nighters. He was an adult. He made his own decisions about how he was going to work. And besides, what about your role in all this? If you noticed him not taking care of himself, you could have mentioned it. None of that behavior was unusual for Skanda anyway. It was part of our reputation, part of the culture. There isn't a single cause you can isolate in a case like this.
Sitting in one place for too long. Chronic stress. Both of those are risk factors.
Evelyn, I'm truly sorry about what happened to Damien. He had a bright future, and it was a shock to all of us. But the answers here aren't simple ones. Dwelling on it isn't going to bring him back, nor is discussing the huge number of potential causes of pulmonary embolism. It happened, and now we have to move on.
It felt like everything stopped. All of the work we were doing might as well have crumbled into dust. We were trying to build something to help the world, and we got lost along the way. What was the point? There didn't seem to be a point any longer.
I know that you cared about him. The process of grief can go on for some time, but you're taking the right steps. You're regaining your sense of purpose, aren't you? The experience of suffering is what makes us want to end suffering. It's late. I've had quite a bit to drink, so I'll tell you a secret, Evelyn. I said I want to end human suffering, which makes me sound very altruistic. But I'm not doing it for humankind. I'm doing it for myself. I have nothing. I've ruined every relationship I was ever in. I hardly ever see my kids, and, well, they hate me anyway. I want to end my own suffering, but I can't bring myself to do it the traditional way. That's why I pursued this technology. That's why I want it to exist. The idea that everyone else could use it too, it's just a bonus.
Soren, are you okay?
No, not at all. I'm aware of that. I'm not a good person, Evelyn. Neither is Raynor, of course, but at least I'm honest with myself about that. So, now that that's all out in the open, you probably want to head home before it gets too late. Don't let me keep you.
Yes, I'll get going. I hope you can feel better.
No, I'll be fine. Just, please, Consider it, Evelyn. You and I are both more familiar with pain than we might wish to be. What if you could take that away? Each of us has a destiny to fulfill. I truly believe that. I'm sure yours will come into focus soon.